You know, there's something quite enchanting about the way human beings look for messages in everything. A bird lands on a windowsill, and we wonder what it means. The clock shows 11:11, and we whisper, "Ah, the universe is speaking to me." A song comes on the radio just when we were thinking of someone, and we think, surely that can't be coincidence. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with finding wonder in coincidence. The trouble begins when we start to imagine that existence is some cosmic code designed for our private decoding, that behind every flicker of light and gust of wind there hides a secret message just for me. But the universe, you see, is not a telegram service. It is not whispering selective hints to the special few who know how to listen. It is simply happening. And what's marvelous, what's truly miraculous, is that it happens without any need for our interpretation. We've grown so accustomed to control, to explanation, to certainty, that pure happening feels unbearable. So we cover the silence with symbols, we draw constellations in the random scatter of stars, and we feel safer believing there's a hidden order that includes us, because the alternative that everything is magnificently, gloriously unpremeditated seems too vast, too intimate. This is the great seduction of signs. We long for confirmation that we're being watched, guided, favored. We crave the comfort of a universe that notices our little lives. Yet the irony is this: the moment we demand proof that we belong to the whole, we've already forgotten that we are the whole. You see, when you truly feel one with existence, you don't need a message from it. You are the message. Every rustle of wind, every blink of light, every sound of your own heartbeat is the universe speaking, but not to you, as you. So when people ask, how do I know if I'm on the right path? What sign should I look for? I say, look around. The sign is everything. Because what could possibly exist outside the totality of what is? If the entire cosmos is this dance of energy and awareness, then even your confusion is part of the choreography. But the mind is a very nervous thing. It doesn't like dancing without a plan. It wants to know the steps before the music begins. So it searches, analyzes, connects the dots, and calls it destiny. It cannot stand that perhaps there are no dots at all, just one great unbroken pattern, far too vast for any single eye to comprehend. And the wonderful cosmic joke is that the more earnestly we look for signs, the more signs we find, until the world becomes an echo chamber of our own projections. Then, one day, if we're very lucky, we grow tired of interpreting. We sit quietly, without needing the universe to speak, and suddenly we discover it was never silent. It was only waiting for us to stop shouting our questions long enough to hear its laughter. That laughter, my friends, is the sound of reality itself. The laughter that says there was never a hidden message. There was only this, the shining, living presence of what is. You see, if we look carefully, what we call life is really a game, a divine game of hide and seek. The universe, in its boundless playfulness, hides itself from itself, pretending to be you, pretending to be me, pretending to be trees, stars, lovers, accountants, and philosophers. And in that grand masquerade, consciousness, which is the very root and essence of all things, takes the daring risk of forgetting. It says, let's pretend I'm lost. Let's pretend I don't know who I am. For without the hiding, there could be no finding, and without the finding, there could be no joy in remembering. Now, here's the delicious twist. The very one who is seeking the meaning of life is none other than life itself, playing a trick on itself. like a child who covers her eyes and cries, "Where am I?" Forgetting, in her own laughter, that the game only works because she already knows she's right here. So, when we speak of awakening or spiritual discovery, we're really talking about the moment the universe, wearing your face, gets tired of the hiding part of the game. It opens one eye and whispers, "Ah, yes, of course, it was me all along." This is why the search for signs is so endlessly frustrating. Every time we look for a clue, we're like the cosmic child peeking between her fingers, pretending not to know she's the one who hid. We invent riddles only to delight in solving them. We cast questions into the sky and then applaud when they come back as shooting stars. But the truth, if we dare use that word, is that there was never a separate seeker and a separate secret. There's only the infinite self, momentarily disguised as a finite creature, chasing its own tail through time and space. And isn't it marvelous? The universe doesn't hide out of cruelty, but out of exuberance. The hiding makes the finding meaningful, like the tension in a symphony that makes its resolution so sweet. Imagine a game of hide and seek, where everyone stood in plain sight. How dull. The thrill is in the chase, in the forgetting, in the rediscovery. When you grasp this, really grasp it, the anxiety begins to fade. You no longer need omens to assure you that you're on the right path. You are the path. The game has always been you pretending to be something else, just long enough to enjoy the moment of surprise when you remember. So, if you must look for a sign, perhaps this is the only one worth finding, that sudden, inexplicable laughter that bubbles up when you realize you've been chasing your own shadow, and the whole cosmos has been laughing with you the entire time. Now, once we begin to suspect the game, once the curtain trembles and we catch a glimpse backstage, something quite peculiar happens. The ego, that clever little actor we thought we were, rushes in to take a bow. It says, "Ah, I see what's going on. I am awakening. I am the one seeing through the illusion." And at that precise moment, the illusion grows a new layer. The ego, you see, is a master of disguise. It will happily trade its business suit for a robe, its ambition for humility, and call itself spiritual. It will kneel on the stage and pretend to surrender, all the while peeking up to see if anyone's watching. It is quite a performance, the ego playing the part of the one who has transcended ego. And it's terribly convincing, because the desire to be awakened is still a desire, and the desire to be humble is still pride in costume. This is what I sometimes call the final trick of the self. It sneaks into the temple, sits on the altar, and starts congratulating itself for giving up worldly attachments. It swaps the stock portfolio for prayer beads, the social competition for moral superiority. But the game hasn't changed at all, only the decorations have. The ego loves to imagine itself on a spiritual journey because journeys have destinations, and destinations imply control. If I meditate enough, if I collect enough signs, if I live purely enough, then enlightenment will be mine. But my dear friends, the very idea of mine is the old mask returning. You cannot own awakening any more than you can own the wind. Try to catch it, and it slips through your fingers. Try to claim it, and it vanishes, leaving you with an empty title, the Awakened One, which is far heavier to carry than any worldly name. The irony is exquisite. The more intensely you pursue enlightenment as a prize, the more you reinforce the illusion of the pursuer. It's like polishing a mirror that isn't there. You can shine and still not see your true face, because the one doing the polishing is the smudge. So what is to be done? Nothing, really. Nothing at all, because the ego cannot destroy itself, the fire cannot burn itself, the knife cannot cut itself. The very moment the mind tries to unmask itself, it puts on another mask. And here's where the laughter begins again, the cosmic laughter. For you realize that even this dance of ego and awakening, pride and humility, seeking and finding, is part of the same eternal play. The sacred is not something the ego can hijack. It's the stage on which the ego performs. When this dawns upon you, not as an idea, but as a felt recognition, the tension dissolves. You stop trying to be spiritual and simply breathe. You let life live you, and in that effortless being, the so-called ego becomes just another expression of the divine, a funny little puppet in the cosmic theater, doing exactly what it was meant to do: pretend to be separate until it laughs itself back into unity. There's a certain delicious madness in us, a hunger for reassurance. We want the universe to tell us that we are special, that we're on the right track, that our choices matter to something larger than our own small narrative. And so we start looking everywhere for signs. A feather on the ground becomes a message. A song on the radio becomes an omen. A stranger's glance feels like fate tapping us on the shoulder. But what's really happening? The universe hasn't changed its tune. It's been humming the same cosmic symphony all along. What's changed is our listening. We've become so frightened of silence that we fill it with our own echoes and call it meaning. You see, the mind is rather like a gambler at a slot machine. Each time something lines up, it gets a little jolt of satisfaction. Ah, there it is again. 1111. It's that small hit of certainty in an uncertain world, that sweet taste of control in a life that refuses to be managed. And like any good gambler, once the machine pays out, even once, we pull the lever forever after, hoping for another sign from heaven. But heaven, if you look closely, was never hiding inside the numbers on the clock. It's in the fact that there is a clock at all, that there's consciousness to notice it, to ask the question, to seek connection. The sign addict, however, doesn't see that. He mistakes the echo for the voice, the reflection for the face. He thinks awakening means collecting tokens of validation, little badges that say, yes, you're getting closer. And in doing so, he turns the boundless mystery into a scavenger hunt. Now, I'm not scolding. We've all done it. We crave assurance because the human heart trembles before the infinite. We want to know that someone, somewhere, is keeping score, that the lights in the sky are blinking for us. But the tragedy and the comedy is that this very craving blinds us to the miracle of what's already present. Because once you start depending on confirmation, you've missed the immediacy of life itself. You become like a lover who can no longer feel affection unless it's said out loud every 5 minutes. You start to believe that truth needs constant proof, and that the absence of a sign means the absence of meaning. But meaning, real meaning, is not a message sent from the outside. It's the quiet recognition that whatever appears joy or sorrow, coincidence or chaos, is part of a single happening. There are no extra parts to reality. So if you find yourself obsessing over omens, chasing synchronicities, or begging the cosmos for a nod of approval, pause for a moment. Notice who is asking for the sign. That, right there, is the sign that consciousness has become self-aware enough to ask. And once you see that, you begin to laugh, because the game was never about getting messages from the universe. It was about realizing you were the messenger all along. Now, let's take a closer look at this curious business of signs and omens. For what are they, really? They are reflections, mirrors held up by the universe, showing us not hidden messages from beyond, but our own minds gazing back. You see, the world has this wonderful way of echoing our state of consciousness. When we are anxious, everything seems ominous. When we are in love, even the rain feels poetic. The same event, a silence, a bird's call, a door creaking open, can seem divine revelation to one person and meaningless noise to another. So which is it? The answer, of course, is both. Or perhaps more truthfully, neither. Because the world, you see, is like a great Rorschach test, an ink blot of infinite complexity. And what you find in it depends entirely on what you bring to it. The so-called signs you perceive are projections of your own inner weather. The clouds of your mood, the wind of your longing, the light of your attention, all paint meaning onto the canvas of the present moment. And that's not a mistake. It's how consciousness plays with itself. It projects its interior upon the exterior, forgets that it did so, and then marvels at how personal the universe feels. It's a wonderful trick. It's as if the ocean sends out waves, and each wave believes it has discovered motion for the first time. But here lies the subtle danger. When we forget that we are the projector, we start taking the movie for reality. We start believing that the meaning we see comes from out there, that the signs possess an independent will. We make idols out of our own reflections and pray to them for guidance. This is why every true mystic, including our old friend the Buddha, has said that enlightenment is a matter of seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be, not as we fear them to be, but simply as they are. The universe does not send you coded telegrams. It is the message, pure, untranslatable presence. When you begin to grasp this, life becomes astonishingly intimate, because you realize that there was never any real separation between the observer and the observed. The same awareness that looks for signs is the awareness that is the world. The bird doesn't sing to you, it sings as you. The rustling leaves are not applause for your awakening, they are your awakening rustling itself. And then something extraordinary happens. Meaning stops being something you chase and becomes something that simply is. You no longer read life as a coded letter addressed to Dear Me. You experience it as an open page, endlessly writing itself in the ink of being. At that moment, the entire search for signs collapses, not in despair, but in wonder. You realize that every flicker, every breath, every heartbeat is already proof enough. Not proof of destiny or divine instruction, but proof that there is, right now, awareness, looking, listening, being. And in that recognition, the mirror becomes transparent. You see through your own reflection and find that you were never outside the picture at all. You were the image and the light that revealed it. You know, people often ask, how do I know if I'm truly awake? And I always say, try sitting in silence for a moment and see what happens. Because silence, my friends, is the most uncomfortable teacher of all. It has no praise to give, no instructions to offer, and no signs to display. It doesn't flatter you with synchronicities or visions. It simply is. And when you face that raw isness without dressing it up, you discover how addicted you are to interpretation. The ordinary mind cannot bear naked reality. The instant it meets silence, it begins to narrate like a nervous radio host, terrified of dead air. Am I doing this right? How long should I sit? Is this what awakening feels like? The mind chatters because it cannot stand being unemployed. But the real test, the truest test of spiritual maturity, is whether you can allow life to unfold without inventing a story about it. Can you sit, breathe, feel the heart beating, and not call it meditation or progress or failure? Can you experience a moment without turning it into a measurement? You see, the ego survives by narrative. It says, this is me, this is what's happening to me, this is where I'm going. It is like a spider endlessly spinning threads of identity, trying to weave a web strong enough to catch eternity. Yet the more it spins, the more entangled it becomes. When you stop spinning even for a second, something miraculous occurs. The whole web disappears, and there you are not as a character in a story, but as the sheer happening of awareness itself. The heart beats, the lungs move, the breath comes and goes, and it's all happening without your help. You begin to see that life never needed your supervision. It's rather funny, actually. We spend so much time trying to manage the present, to plan the future, to redeem the past, and all the while, the universe has been managing itself perfectly well without our commentary. So, if you really want to test your so-called enlightenment, don't look for visions or voices. Just sit. Sit and let the mind tell all its little stories until it exhausts itself. Let it whisper its dramas, its regrets, its hopes, until it runs out of script. Then, in that exquisite gap between thoughts, you'll discover something far more convincing than any sign from heaven, the quiet joy of being without needing to become. And when you taste that stillness, even for an instant, you understand that the goal was never to perfect the story, it was to wake up from it. At a certain point in this strange adventure we call awakening, you begin to suspect that all your effort has been, well, rather funny. You've read the books, practiced the meditations, watched the signs, counted the breaths, and somewhere deep down, you sense that the very trying is the trap. You see, there's a peculiar paradox about this whole business of spiritual life. The harder you try to awaken, the deeper you fall asleep. Because who is it that's doing the trying? It's still the same you, the busy little mind, desperate to improve itself. The ego, like a dog chasing its own tail, believes that if it just runs a bit faster, it will finally catch enlightenment. But you can't make yourself surrender. That's like trying to relax by tensing your muscles, or trying to fall asleep by insisting on it. The very intention contradicts the state you hope to reach. The more you do, the further you drift from the simple grace of being. And yet, here's the marvelous irony. When you give up the struggle, when you stop trying to manipulate the present moment, awakening begins to reveal itself on its own. It doesn't come to you, it comes through you. It was always there, quietly humming beneath the noise of your effort. The Taoists call this wu-wei action without force, effort without strain. It's not passivity, it's not laziness. It's what happens when a leaf falls without needing to understand gravity, or when a cat stretches in the sun without needing a yoga teacher. The universe moves, and the leaf, the cat, and you move with it. Most of us have been trained to think of life as a project, something to achieve, to perfect, to control. But life isn't a project. It's a process, a rhythm, a dance. You don't dance to reach the end of the song. You dance because moving is the point. Trying to awaken is like trying to make waves in the ocean by splashing harder. The waves were always there. The effort only muddies the water. But the moment you stop, the moment you simply float, the surface clears, and you realize the ocean has been carrying you all along. And in that realization, something subtle yet magnificent occurs. A smile appears, not from triumph, but from relief. You've discovered that awakening isn't something to earn. It's the recognition that there was never anyone apart from life to earn it. So if you want to awaken, my dear friends, here's the trick. Stop trying to awaken. Sit quietly, breathe, do nothing, and watch with gentle amusement as the whole universe does everything. Now, something very curious happens when you finally stop looking for signs. They start to appear everywhere. Not because the universe suddenly began to take notice of you, it was never not noticing, but because you've relaxed enough to see clearly. When the storm of seeking quiets, the sky of awareness reveals what was there all along. Birds sing, clouds drift, someone laughs in another room, and somehow it all feels like a message. But this time, it doesn't mean anything. And that's what makes it sacred. You see, the spiritually immature mind looks for meaning like a detective searching for clues. The awakened mind, on the other hand, sees that meaning and meaninglessness are the same dance, When you no longer need signs to confirm your path, everything becomes a sign, and simultaneously, nothing does. It's rather like falling in love. Before, you were desperate for proof that someone loved you, a word, a gesture, a promise. After you truly feel love, proof becomes unnecessary. The whole atmosphere hums with it. So too with awakening. The world that once seemed silent now sings, not to you, but as you. When surrender has ripened, synchronicities continue, but they lose their weight. The flicker of a light, the number on a receipt, the chance encounter, all are beautiful, but you don't clutch at them anymore. They're not cosmic messages to decode. They're brushstrokes in a painting too vast to interpret. Alan Watts once said that to believe the world has meaning is to miss the point. The world is meaning. Meaning is not something behind the form, it's the very form itself. So the leaf falling, the wind shifting, the laughter of a stranger, they don't symbolize anything deeper. They are the depth, expressing itself effortlessly. And when you live in this way, seeing the sacred in the ordinary without trying to possess it, life becomes profoundly light. You can smile at the little coincidences, enjoy them as you would a good joke, and then let them go. Because the real gift of surrender is not that the universe starts speaking in louder signs, but that you stop needing translation. The miracle is not that something new appears, it's that nothing was ever missing. So when people tell me, after I stopped searching, the signs returned stronger than ever, I say, yes, of course they did, because now you can finally see, but the difference is everything. You see without grasping, you experience without interpreting, and you allow life to be just as it is, spontaneous, unexplainable, and utterly sufficient. You know, there's an odd thing that happens when people begin to wake up. They expect the world to change. They think enlightenment will come with halos and harps, that the sky will split open and pour golden light upon them. But when the clouds part, they find only dishes to wash, bills to pay, socks to fold. And that's the real miracle, that nothing special happens. See, we've been trained to look for fireworks, for proof that something sacred has occurred. We imagine awakening as a grand event, a spiritual coronation, but the truth is almost disappointing to the mind. After awakening, you're still you, only lighter like a shadow that suddenly realizes it's made of sunlight. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, not because it changes, but because you stop demanding that it should. Alan Watts once said that Zen is not about becoming holy, but about becoming whole. And wholeness includes the ordinary, brushing your teeth, answering emails, feeding the cat. The enlightened mind doesn't turn everything into mystical theater. It simply sees that every act, every sound, every breath was divine all along. When the search ends, life doesn't become a parade of miracles. It becomes simple, unadorned, and utterly real. You discover that you don't need to meditate on mountaintops to find peace. It's there in the hum of the refrigerator, in the rain against the window, in the quiet between your thoughts. This is the freedom of nothing special. The ego hates that phrase. It says, nothing special? That can't be it. I've read the scriptures. I've fasted. I've suffered. Surely something magnificent is supposed to happen at the end of all this. But that expectation, you see, is precisely what keeps the extraordinary out of reach. Because when you stop insisting that life perform for you, you suddenly notice it's been performing the whole time. The moment you stop trying to make reality meaningful, you realize it's already overflowing with meaning, not the kind you can explain, but the kind you can feel. The kind that makes a cup of tea taste infinite. Nothing special doesn't mean dull. It means free. It means you no longer chase experiences to validate your being. You are content with this, just this. The sensation of being alive, unedited, unornamented, unremarkable. And strangely enough, when you finally accept that nothing special is coming, everything becomes special. Every laugh, every mistake, every sunrise, is seen for what it is, not a sign from the universe, but the universe itself, smiling back. When you grasp this, the heavy machinery of seeking grinds to a halt. You stop trying to achieve the present moment. You simply let it be, and in that letting, the miracle you sought quietly unfolds. The peace of no effort, the beauty of no control, the bliss of nothing to prove. This is the essence of awakening, the art of being utterly ordinary and completely at peace with it. You know, music is a very revealing thing, because if you listen carefully, you'll notice that what makes it beautiful isn't merely the sound, it's the silence between the notes. Without silence, there's no rhythm, no phrasing, no meaning at all. It's the pauses, the spaces, that give the melody its shape. And life, my friends, is no different. Most of us, in our desperation to be alive, fill every gap with noise. We chatter to avoid quiet. We plan to avoid uncertainty. We analyze to avoid wonder. But just as a song collapses when every instrument plays at once, consciousness collapses when we never stop talking to ourselves. The universe is forever playing music, but we drown it out with our own commentary. And then, when we're tired of the noise, we call it seeking peace. How strange. It's like beating a drum to demand silence. The wise have always known that the secret of living is to listen not only to the sounds, but to the spaces in between. That's where the depth is. The pause between breaths, the moment before you answer a question, the quiet after laughter fades. That's where reality whispers its secrets. You see, silence isn't the absence of life. It's the background against which life appears. Just as the stars need darkness to shine, the notes need quiet to sing. When you discover this, you begin to understand that the whole of existence is a kind of divine music, a play of sound and stillness, form and emptiness, presence and pause. And in that stillness, you realize something extraordinary. You are not merely a listener of the song. You are the silence that allows the song to be heard. You are not the dancer moving through space. You are the space itself, in which all movement happens. That's why the masters laugh softly and say that awakening is nothing you can acquire. It's not another sound to add to the symphony. It's the recognition of the silence that was there before the first note was struck. So, perhaps the simplest spiritual practice is this. Let the music of life play, but don't forget to hear the silence too. For in that silence, the world is not asking you to understand it, only to join in its stillness. And when you do, you find that the silence between the notes is not empty after all. It's full of awareness, full of peace, full of the simple, unspeakable joy of being. At some point, when the seeking has softened and the silence has spoken, a curious thing begins to dawn upon you. You realize that life no longer requires your confirmation. You don't need signs, scriptures, or certainties to keep it real. It simply is vast, immediate, undeniable. For most of our lives, we move through the world collecting evidence, proof that we are loved, proof that we matter, proof that existence itself has a purpose. We crave reassurance as though the universe were a courtroom and we, the accused, pleading for justification. But when you awaken, that trial collapses. There's no judge, no jury, no verdict to reach. There's only life, innocent and complete, exactly as it is. And when that realization ripens, something magical happens. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop trying to make the universe fit your story, because you finally understand it was never your story. It was the universe's story all along, pretending to be yours for the thrill of experience. So what does it mean to live without needing proof? It means you no longer look for validation in applause or agreement. You can sit quietly in the middle of chaos and feel at home. You can lose everything the world calls important, status, security, even certainty, and still know, without words, that nothing essential has been lost. Alan Watts liked to say that we are not strangers dropped into this world, we are expressions of it as natural as trees or clouds. When you live from that awareness, life stops being something happening to you and becomes something happening as you. Every conversation, every mistake, every tear, every breath, it's all the universe speaking itself in a language beyond words. And so you walk differently, not proudly, not fearfully, but lightly, as one who knows the ground underfoot is the same substance as the stars above. You find yourself laughing more easily, because you see that all the seriousness was part of the dream. Even suffering, when it comes, no longer feels like punishment. It's simply another wave in the ocean that you are. Living without needing proof does not mean living without care. On the contrary, you become more alive to the world, more tender toward its fragility, because when you no longer need to defend an identity, you can finally love without condition. You don't love people for what they give you or for what they believe. You love them because they are yourself in disguise. And in this effortless compassion, you begin to understand what all the teachers were pointing to, that the point of awakening was never to escape the human experience, but to live it fully, with eyes open and heart unguarded. The final irony is that when you stop looking for proof, proof is everywhere, not as evidence, but as experience. The wind on your face, the taste of tea, the laughter of a child, each one a perfect testimony that existence requires no justification. To live without needing proof is to live as the proof itself. You, breathing, listening, wondering, that's it. That's the miracle you were waiting for. And so, my friends, after all the seeking, all the signs, all the splendid confusion of this strange play called life, we arrive here at the simplest place of all, the place we never left, the here and the now. You may have noticed that the search has grown very quiet. The mind, that restless storyteller, is a little weary now. It has asked its questions, built its theories, chased its meanings, and finally, mercifully, fallen silent. And in that silence, there you are. Not the character you've been defending, not the seeker chasing awakening, not even the witness observing it all. Just this, the open, effortless presence that has always been here, watching the seasons change. Notice, for a moment, that you are breathing, not because you chose to, not because you decided to, it's simply happening. The breath comes and goes, like the tide, without supervision. Awareness flows through it, unasked. And as you sit with that, something begins to soften. The edges blur. The distinction between you and everything else starts to fade. You realize that you have never truly been alone. Because who could you be alone from? The wind that touches your skin, the sound that reaches your ear, the light that falls upon your eyes, all of it is you, meeting yourself in endless forms. And so the great drama of awakening ends not with a thunderclap, but with a sigh, a deep, peaceful sigh that says, ah, of course. You see, you were never lost, and there was never anything to find. The journey was the game, the hiding, the very act of discovery. The laughter, you hear that faint, eternal laughter echoing somewhere at the back of your mind, is the universe remembering itself through you. So, you can stop striving now. You can stop polishing the mirror and chasing the reflection. You can let the world be just as it is, dazzling, ordinary, unspeakably complete. Sit with this, if you will. There is no need to improve the present moment. Nothing missing, nothing wrong, nothing to fix. Awareness, right now, is already perfect. And if you listen carefully, not with your ears, but with your whole being, you might sense a quiet smile within the stillness. That smile is not yours. or mine. It belongs to the space between us, the space that was never divided. It is the gentle smile of awareness itself, timeless, effortless, always home.